Hey everybody, it's Rich and Sammy here with this week's What's Hot. So, let's dive right in. We got a lot of cool stuff in. We got a huge order in from MegaBass. Really excited. Good quality, Japanese designs, Japanese made. So let's start walking through this. We kind of got some favorites out here on the table. Mostly bass fishing with this. It's good technical kind of stuff, like really nice paint jobs, really nice hooks and split rings and stuff. So Sammy, I know you've got some favorites of these. Why don't you start us off? Which one do you like the best here?
So at least as it goes this time of the year, we're doing a lot of cold water bass fishing, and one of the best baits for that is a jerk bait. And MegaBass has had these out for a long time now. It's the Vision 110 series. They make some beautiful paint jobs and just stuff. You're going to see a lot of attention to detail when it comes to MegaBass products. And these guys are great. These aren't going to dive too deep for you, which is great for our waters around here. We're not fishing in anything too deep. That's going to be an awesome thing this time of the year.
So walk me through some presentations with these. If you're fishing these for bass, especially in the colder weather, what kind of retrieval are you using with those?
We're going to be going pretty slow. A simple pattern of just a nice sharp snap with the jerk and letting it pause for 3, 4, 5 seconds. And if that doesn't work, snap it again and let it sit for 10 seconds. As much as 15 seconds you'll see people doing this time of the year.
Nice.
And as we go into the springtime, jerk baits still are going to be catching fish pretty efficiently. And one of your best things, you start speeding up a little bit, maybe 2, 3 jerks, and you're going to let it sit for the same amount of time, but going a little bit faster.
Yeah, and I definitely think that's something to hit home. When you're bass fishing, all too often, especially us saltwater guys, we get into the rhythm of retrieving a lure kind of fast.
Pretty quick.
And with bass fishing, they will follow a bait for a period of time, and those pauses, those stops, getting that lure to move and then stand still for a period of time, it allows them to kind of catch up to it. And a lot of the times, they will follow it, and as it stops, they will nail it as soon as you make a little twitch.
Yeah.
So you want to make sure, like you said, you retrieve, twitch, stop, twitch, then start retrieving. And that little twitch is sometimes what really fires them up. So just kind of vary that retrieval.
Another thing that goes into when you're fishing a jerk bait is when you do go ahead and stop that bait, make sure that you have just a touch of slack in your line, because you don't want to go from, if you have a little tight line, that bait does a little move and then jerks. You want that thing going from completely still to a nice dart, very reactive base. A lot of times you don't think you can catch reaction bite fish this time of the year, but jerk baits are probably your best way to go as far as reaction.
Absolutely. Standard medium action rod, 6.5, 7 foot.
Medium action, 6.5, 7 foot. I like a faster tip most of the time, just because when I jerk that, I want that tip to go straight back before, it's not wobbling all around, moving that bait too much.
Sure. All right. So let's switch from those hard baits. We're going to go back to hard baits in a minute. Let's go over to some soft plastics. So we've got some swim baits here from MegaBass, the Spark Shad. So we've got them in a couple different colors. We have them in 2 different sizes. Pretty unique little bait. Really cool shape with the fish. You get the paddle tail on the back, your little fins that are sticking out. There are channels designed to allow for hook placement when you're rigging these. Again, we have 2 different sizes, kind of a larger size for your largemouth, maybe some bigger baits for smallmouth. Got some smaller baits that work well for smallmouth. Pickerel. Definitely for pickerel. And some really good colors with these. Rig them weedless. You can rig them on a jig head. What are your thoughts on these?
Well, if you're going to be fishing for pickerel, rigging them with just a classic jig head works really well. A lot of times, though, we're getting into that spawn season. I like to bulk up my profiles. That's when I'm going to start fishing, maybe adding some skirts to it. Or a bait like this, another MegaBass offering, that's really pretty underspin. You got the blade in there, which is great, especially when, you're not trying to look like everybody else out there, and everybody's throwing, 4 or 5 inch paddle tails. This is going to be a way to kind of transition into something, they haven't seen all day long. Pairing them up with some of these 3, 4 inch paddle tails like that. I'm really excited to get these out and try and fish some of those.
Yeah,
that is going to be an awesome little setup there.
That is a really nice pairing, and I want to just make sure that we see the detail in these these bait keeps. That thing is pretty serious. There is multiple pieces of mono. They're tied to the shank of the hook. They're epoxied over top of. That's going to really hold those baits on really well. Weed guard on the top. Metal underspin. It's on a piece of titanium wire, so it's going to handle the abuse of fish grabbing it, those toothy critters biting onto these. So that's a really cool bait.
I like seeing the titanium wire underneath. A lot of the underspins you see today, they're going more to silicone, and I've had pickerel just bite those off. So it's nice to see a more classic design with some wire underneath there.
Yeah, absolutely, I agree. So let's move over. It's the year of the cicada, right? We were
Yeah.
joking around. It seems like every year is the year of the cicada, but supposedly we're going to see more this year than usual. So they've got this really cool little cicada imitations. We've got it in 2 different colors. Really unique design. It's kind of reminiscent of the jitterbug, old school lure. So you're going to tie on the tail here, so it'll cast really well. And then as it retrieves and you start to retrieve it, these wings open up and it'll waddle back and forth. And these are soft plastic, they're silicones, so these are going to hold up again to that abuse of being in the fish's mouth, or just just bouncing around the tackle box. They are rigged with a double hook, which is nice. You don't have to worry about that treble. Easy to change this hook out. You can just pop it right off if you need to change the hook for a variety of reasons. If you want to beef it up or just replace it in general. So really excited about those. Got them in 2 different colors, and like I said, the year of the cicada. You definitely want to have some of these in the box.
So sticking with MegaBass, there's kind of 2 schools of thought that goes into bass fishing in the wintertime. You either want to go really small, or sometimes you want to go pretty big, and that's moving a slow, large swim bait like you see here. These guys are going to be fantastic for some of those bigger fish we're seeing in the mill ponds over on the shore. I'd be fishing those all day long. These kind of bluegill-esque yellow perch patterns are going to be really nice to mimic just about everything they're going to be eating this time of the year.
Yeah, exactly. And again, slow retrievals. These things are articulated, so you're going to have that tail kind of wagging in the back there. Just looks like a little fish cruising around. Definitely a really cool bait to throw. A little bit heavier on the weight, so you're going to want to switch to like a medium heavy.
Yeah.
Maybe beef up your line a little bit more. Throw this on your larger outfit.
Yeah, exactly. But sticking a little bit with bass fishing, we do have some offers here from Eagle Claw. These are some more finesse presentations. This is the opposite end of the spectrum from these guys here. Some more classic Ned rig designs, but even a drop shot, something that people forget a lot about a drop shot. It's a tried and true method, and these are nice because they come with the drop shot weights here that have this little clasp. Now that makes it really easy to adjust it. One of the worst things you're going to run into when you're out there with a drop shot is finding the depth you want to have your worm above your weights. With these guys in that little clasp, all you have to do is pop it into place, pull it out of place, and it'll stay in there without slipping through. You don't have to tie a knot every time. You can just kind of drag it down the line.
Yeah,
Makes
really
it
nice.
really simple.
Yeah, we always want to have, we do a lot of rigging.
Yeah.
The easier it gets, the better it is, right?
As far as these baits, I'm going to fish them on pretty light gear as well. Medium lights, medium action rods, 2500, 3000 series spinning reels, stuff like that. Light braid, or even light fluoro.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's something that's got a nice soft tip to it.
Yep.
You want to feel what's going on, because with finesse fishing, that's exactly it. You want to finesse the whole way, finesse style line, thinner diameter lines, softer tip on the rod. So let's switch over to some jig heads. So we got some Mr. Twister jig heads in. We've got some silver, like a whitish silver color, and we got chartreuse. 3 different sizes. We have 1/4 ounce, 1/8 ounce, and 1/16 ounce. These are going to be right up your alley. These are going to be great for perch, right?
Perch, pickerel fish, and even the larger sizes. And I like how they have a short shank hook. If you're going to be pairing it up with some of these new MegaBass baits, or a lot of your other 3-inch profiles like that, they're going to pair up really nice.
Yeah, jig head and the twister tail has always done really well for
Yeah.
anybody. It's a winner. So let's see. Let's switch over to some addiction bait stuff. So we've got some new frogs from Addiction Bait. A couple different colors here. Pretty simple in design, but yet effective, right?
Yeah. I like the little blade underneath. It's going to give you something a little bit extra, something not everybody's fishing out there. If you're rolling around Transquaking in the middle of August, there's 70 guys out there. You might have something a little bit different.
And these aren't terribly heavy, so you don't need a, usually with frogging we're going to use kind of heavier rods because we're throwing into grass and muck and weeds. But these are pretty lightweight, so if you do find some open water, don't be afraid to throw these on a little bit lighter rod, which is going to be a lot of fun. And nothing in any species, nothing better than a topwater bite.
Yeah. And sticking with frogs, we did get some MegaBass frogs in as well. These are going to be a little bit larger profile, which I like, especially for the snakehead. Sometimes I like to go to a little bit bigger baits. You can just see the attention to detail on the paint jobs here, stuff like that you're going to see. Another thing to look at is, anytime you're looking at a frog, is how much hook penetration do you have? Well, that's a lot of hook penetration. And the frogs come at a pretty well angle. A lot of people like to adjust the angle of the hook. You really don't have to do much modifications to these frogs. Pretty much ready to go right out of the box, which is nice. We got a bunch of different colors, your classics, more of an actual frog pattern. And this here is a gold one, which I'm really excited about. That's an awesome pattern there.
Yeah, and I like the long profile to these. So like you were saying, this is going to fish kind of like almost like a chugging spook.
Yeah.
Nice long profile so you can get a little bit of walking action out of them, but that cupped face is going to really push some water, so they're going to pop. So depending on how you want to retrieve these, whether your rod tip down, kind of repetitiveness, trying to get them to walk the dog, or just, you know, some harsh, subtle pops to just kind of splash some water. Again, you want to make sure, I always tell people when we're selling frogs, you want to imagine in your head what that frog, a real frog, is doing. They kind of swim and then they stop. They just sit there and they look around and then they start swimming. You want to do the same thing. Retrieve, pop, 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 reel, pop, 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 and then you want to stop. Just let the frog kind of sit there. And occasionally, squeeze all that water out of there because they will get a little waterlogged. So you want to make sure every now and then, if it starts to cast, it's getting a little heavier, just squeeze all that water out, let it fill back up with air, and you're good to go.
So that is a bigger frog. What kind of gear are you going to be fishing a little bit stouter frog like that on?
So that one, I'm probably going to go to a medium heavy rod. I'm going to be beefing up the braid a little bit with that. You know, I'm anticipating throwing this on top of grass, so I'm going to be catching, we always joke around, we're going to catch a 2-pound bass and 4 pounds of weeds. So you want to make sure you have ample tackle for that. More, you know, it's overkill for the fish, but because of the conditions that we're fishing in. So usually with frogs, we do like a little bit heavier outfit.
Another little tip for that is you see a lot of the super lines out there as far as braids go, your 8 strands, your 12 strands. There's all sorts of really slick braids. But a 4-strand braid, a classic Power Pro, is going to cut through that grass a lot better than you would get with like an 8-strand because it's just so much more limp, softer.
Yep.
That more rigid really cuts
it
through
acts
the
like
grass.
it acts like a little saw, so it'll help kind of cut through those grasses. You're right, absolutely. You definitely want to use that. And then again, 30, maybe even 40. I've seen guys put 50-pound braid on big bait casters or oversized spinning reels for their frogging rod. Their frogging rods typically look like saltwater rods because you do need that stouter rod, that bigger reel.
That old pull cues.
Exactly.
But sticking with snakehead baits, stuff like that, we got some buzz baits in, and I gotta say, it's probably the prettiest looking buzz bait I've ever seen. I really like the patterns here on the head and just all sorts of detail there. I also like how they have 2 different size skirting material, which is nice. You want a little bit, you know, you don't want the profile to be all one big shape like you see with most of your buzz baits. It's nice to have a little bit extra. Also think it gives them something else to key in on too. You know, a lot of times when you're fishing spinner baits, buzz baits, stuff like that, a lot of times they'll go after the blade, not so much the actual body of the bait. That's why you see people add trailers to these. A little bit longer pattern there on the back is something they can really dial in on besides the blade and go after.
Yeah, absolutely. And to this one, the holes in the blade are going to create a nice bubble trail, so it's going to make this bait look even bigger than it really is. And if you'll notice, the blade runs really close to the shank. You've got this extra piece of bead here that spins around, this brass bead. They're designed to clack. They're designed to kind of make contact and bang as it's spinning around. So don't bend these out and get some free clearance. You want those kind of clacking. It adds that extra element of sound through the water. There's a little bit more vibration and everything.
And we all like talking about topwater. Let's take a look at another one over here. These are going to be more your striper stuff. Now, I'm not saying they won't work for largemouth in a lot of the warmer parts of the year, but these are just a classic spook style bait. They're going to walk across the surface. You're going to be throwing these in your fall time, stuff like that.
Yeah, beautiful baits, and you know, it matches the rest of the stuff that we have here. You know, really good detail, like you said, and good hardware to them. Lastly, we've got some GI jigs. You know, not really new to the market, but we've got them in stock. That's the big deal. I know people are always asking about them, and that's just a little minuscule splinter of what we have in. We've got a full stock. We're actually putting them on the shelf as we speak. So definitely want to start getting stocked up. You know, striper season.
This is time to get them.
Yeah, now's the time to get them. You know, striper season's going to be here before we know it, and people are already starting to get stocked up. So head on in and get your box ready to go. Well,
I think that just about wraps it up.
Yeah, thank you guys for joining. We look forward to seeing you guys next week for What's Hot. And good luck out there. Have fun.
Have a good one, guys.